Hello there, you're watching a Sky News Breakfast. We're going to take another look at the morning's newspapers, and here with me reviewing them today are the political correspondent at The Sun, Martina Bett, and political correspondent at The New Statesman, Freddie Hayward. So welcome back to both of you. And we're going to look at the Telegraph's front page story, one of many papers which are covering the strikes overnight on Thursday night on Houthi bases in Yemen. So what's the Telegraph's take today?
So the Telegraph's take, they've got an interview with the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, who is warning Iran that patience is running out. So, of course, we know that the Houthi rebels are backed by Iran. These are militants that are trained by Iran. So, and Grant Shapps has been clear that there have been talks with Iran in recent weeks and that they've got to basically step down. But what's quite interesting about this article, I thought, is that the Telegraph reveals that actually we were about to send an aircraft carrier to the Red Sea, but we weren't able to do that because of recruitment issues, which is a huge problem in defence. I think former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace actually warned last week that we've got a problem in the armed forces, especially with Generation Z, because they're not signing up. So it's something that will definitely be addressed in the coming weeks, because if we haven't got the equipment, if we haven't got the people for this equipment, and more strikes continue, what's going to happen?
And also there are some suggestions that although the government has said they have no plans for further strikes, they haven't ruled out the possibility if attacks on British ships continue in the Red Sea. And there's a suggestion that perhaps the armed forces could be quite stretched if they have to carry out repeated attacks.
Yeah, I mean, we should be under no illusion that the UK and the US are equal partners in this operation. The UK, for instance, doesn't have ships in the Red Sea or able to send missiles. Our bombs are coming from Typhoon jets that are flying over from Cyprus. So predominantly, it's a US-led mission.
Which carried out their own mission overnight last night, which is not being picked up by the papers yet.
Yeah, I mean, when it's reported, you know, you get the US and the UK placed together as if they're halving the strikes. They're not. This is mostly a US mission.
That's interesting, but the mission's still getting a lot of attention on the inside pages as well. And Freddie, you've spotted a story inside the Eye, which is focusing on the opposition parties and their views on this.
Yes, so the government didn't consult Parliament before they launched those strikes, which they don't have to. I mean, it's important to state that the Prime Minister, under the prerogative powers, can use the military in any way that they like. I mean, we did have a move towards trying to get Parliament to vote on these things after Iraq. We saw Gordon Brown propose a law, but that never came to fruition. We saw the coalition talk about similar things. David Cameron said back in 2016, 2017 that he didn't actually want to crystallise this into a law because he thought the Prime Minister needed the flexibility to strike whenever they needed to. But we're going to see a debate or at least a statement on Monday in the Commons. I think Labour have been quite clear that they support the government in this, as they do with most national security issues. I don't think the government's going to get too much trouble in the House of Commons because Labour are quite clear that they will support it.
Well, yes, and I spoke to the Shadow Defence Secretary yesterday morning. In fact, some of the interviews quoted here, and he made it clear that he'd had conversations with the government about this ahead of the strikes, so he was informed on this. The Liberal Democrats, however, I noticed there's a picture of Layla Moran there. They say they didn't have any information, so they weren't able to say whether or not they backed the strikes because they wanted to hear more, and they would like to see a retrospective vote.
They would like to see a retrospective vote, but I think it's very important for the executive to hold these powers, to be able to act swiftly, because we know that these situations can happen really quickly.
And they don't want to give the Houthis a heads up as well, they say.
Absolutely. And there are still ways that Parliament can hold the executive to account. As we know, the Prime Minister is going to do a speech on Monday, but Parliament can put forward motions. They can hold a vote of no confidence. And there has been a precedent of this. We know David Cameron in 2011 led the military action against Syria, and there was a debate in the House of Commons, but that came only 2 days afterwards. So there is a precedent for this. I'm sure Rishi Sunak will be standing on his feet for several hours being quizzed by lots of MPs on Monday.
Yeah, indeed, and interesting to see how much support there is if there was further action. Let's move on, though, to the Daily Mail, and this is an article focusing on Ed Davey. We're talking about the post office scandal now, aren't we? And a number of figures under the spotlight for inaction over the scandal. Ed Davey is getting a lot of heat on him, and I imagine he is in the Daily Mail as well here. Yeah,
I mean, Ed Davey's had a torrid week. He had an excruciating interview with ITV last night that focused on his period as the Minister for Postal Affairs in the coalition era. And it's, I think, interesting that Ed Davey has been singled out by both parties here over the week. I think in some ways they're seeing Ed Davey as the scapegoat here. It's quite easy just to point the finger at him, and it's almost unedifying, I think, for the politics to take over when you've got this quite heart-wrenching scandal with so many parties implicated, and just to focus on Ed Davey, I think, misses the point.
Do you think that's right? I mean, there were several ministers, because it's a long period of time that people were wronged across a number of years. Do you think it's unfair to put too much focus on ministers who will be obviously having a lot of complaints coming to them on different sources from different people, and can it be hard to prioritise, do you think? What's your view on this?
My view of this, that of course the Liberal Democrats are saying that Labour and the Conservatives are using him as a scapegoat, because both parties, both Labour and the Conservatives, have got questions to answer in relation to the post office scandal. But I think what Ed Davey's position is damaged by the fact that he kept, during the past few years, he kept calling people to resign. Last night, in an interview with ITV, he was asked to apologise, I think, more than 10 times, and he couldn't do that. And
he said he regretted.
Yeah, he said he regretted it, and then I think he was asked, do you not think that the victims of the post office deserve an apology from you? Because he was, as Freddie said, Postal Affairs Minister from 2010 to 2012, which was at the peak of the Horizon scandal. And he said, of course, that the victims of the Horizon scandal deserve a lot, but couldn't bring himself to say sorry.
We should note that there have been 20 postal ministers over the relevant period. I don't think that's limiting the damage to Ed Davey at the moment. There are questions over his knighthood. There are questions over a sub-postmaster standing in his constituency against him as an independent at the next general elections. There is this momentum that's moving against Ed Davey. There are some whispers, rumours about whether people are going to call his leadership into question. And I think he needs to address this quite swiftly. The ITV interview last night was a disaster. It did not go well. He looked very, very bad. So the Lib Dems will have to scramble over the weekend and try and draw a line under this.
Yeah, and he repeatedly says, doesn't he? I'm sorry, I was lied to on an industrial scale, but wouldn't say the word sorry. Yeah, so we'll see whether or not that pressure continues. OK, let's move on, Martina. There's a story in The Guardian about AI that's taken your interest.
Very interesting, very important, because we are in election year, of course. So The Guardian found, they're quoting a communications company that's found that apparently more than 100 paid-for deepfake video advertisements of Rishi Sunak, of a mocked-up Rishi Sunak, were found on Facebook. And this is extremely concerning because obviously, we're all journalists, we follow the news really quickly, but one person that might see a mocked-up version of Rishi Sunak online might actually believe that that's real.
And in an election year as well, there's more pressure on to make sure the truth's
and we know that there have been problems with elections last year. I think Slovakia was having parliamentary elections, and in the days before the elections, there were several videos circulating online, and they couldn't really tell whether people actually ended up believing in those videos. So it's an issue that we're going to hear a lot more in the coming months.
Yeah, it's such a difficult one, isn't it? Yeah. Because obviously the government itself is trying to make regulation of AI a priority, but how quickly can it catch up and before damage is done?
Well, we had that AI summit last year that Rishi Sunak convened. I think it was the first one, so it was a success in many ways. He brought countries together that people didn't expect to come. But the actual output was quite minimal. I think we have to question whether it's necessarily wise to constantly consult these social media companies and these online publishers, as they are, about whether they, what they think about regulation. They are obviously motivated by profit, so the government, I think, has to take a much tougher line and quickly, because we're already seeing this stuff come through on regulating these companies and on AI deepfakes online.
Yeah, and it's an issue globally. We're actually out of time. We got. I'm so sorry to stop you off. You're about to launch in, but we are out of time. Martina and Freddie, thanks very much indeed, though, for taking us through the papers. Thank you.